non-pork. I got so much out of yesterday's talk, I was just wondering, is there any chance you can relocate from Thailand to Australia?
He was so happy with yesterday's talk, he wants you to come and live here.
Oh, you do, huh? It's certainly a nice enough place to live. If it's like meditation, or what do you want to call it? Meditation sounds like, the kind of English word that includes any kind of mental exercises. So, but when I use the word, it generally refers to the Pali word bhavana, and bhavana is cultivating the Eightfold Path, really. It's mindfulness. And it's the Fourth Noble Truth. And mindfulness now is a big word, in the countries like Australia or the UK. You hear it all the time, mindfulness training, stress reduction. People see the value of being mindful just on an individual level, of reducing, learning to relax, learning to let go. Where sometimes when we talk about meditation, it sounds like something you have to do. And then that, just notice how when I tell you you should be doing something, just notice how that affects you. You've got to get, the reaction for most of us is, I've got to do something, I've got to get something I don't have. We assume we're not good enough the way we are, that when we get our meditation together, then we'll be better, or we'll get some kind of reward for it. So this is just learning to observe how things affect you, and some teachers come across with great authority and tell you, okay, you have to do this method and attain this state. And not that they're wrong, but what we can know at the present time is that when somebody comes who I regard as an authority or a meditation master or Ajahn or whatever, then I'm aware of how the effect it has on me, how I react to their presence or what they say. And this you can, it's not about criticizing him, it's just noticing the way things are. Because so many people are, when you hear that somebody is an enlightened master, then you see them as that, You tend to project that perception onto them. And so then you don't really, you're looking at them through a perception that you create rather than opening to the reality of the moment. And so like the importance to trust your awareness more than kind of conditioned perceptions or emotional reactions you might have to various situations. And in my position over the years, being a central figure of a community, then of course people project all kinds of things onto me, and as an elderly monk, as a disciple of Ajahn, and as a teacher, and so forth. But that's just the way, we tend to think and perceive the world. But the attitude of mindfulness is aware of the perceptions we have. It's not about saying they're wrong or that we shouldn't have them, but it's knowing. And this knowing is the nature of consciousness itself. It's not. Consciousness is right now. The fact of this moment is that you're conscious, and then you also know what you're feeling. And when you start observing just your own mental state, emotional state is like this. And so then the mindfulness is aligned with wisdom rather than with the idea of solving my problems, learning to let go so I don't feel stressed. And where so much of mindfulness practices are presented more as a kind of psychotherapy than as a liberation from delusion, which is fine. I'm not against psychotherapy, but it's still, psychotherapy tends to deal with the ego or trying to it doesn't take you to ultimate liberation. And then there's criticisms like teachers go and teach the army mindfulness so that they shoot straighter. And one can interpret that in various, moralistic ways, but the way they're shooting now there's so much collateral damage. Right? So they seem to kill everyone except the target. And not to justify it, but I do have faith in just even the psychotherapeutic methods. At least it's beginning to open up a human, make us aware, leading us to an awareness of the potential of the human condition that we didn't have before, when it was all very much based on thinking and ideas. My generation was very much an idealistic one. In the United States, we were brought up on American idealism, and so that during the Second World War, I grew up during the Second World War, and it was a very patriotic time, and you're just a child, so you don't question, Hitler was the perfect villain. You couldn't find a better person to hate than Hitler, and then I was doing the same with the Japanese, in propaganda, and building up these kind of emotions of revenge and killing, conquering, based on the ideals of exterminating the forces of evil, or they kill the villain and then then everything will be better. So it's an annihilationist kind of teaching and attitude where, if something annoys you, get rid of it. And where the Buddhist logic is based on the law of karma, to have cause and effect, so that if you want a good effect, you have to use a good cause. Where in the American system, it's the end justifies the means. So war justifies the fact that if you have some kind of so-called peace, then war is justified. So there is the Second World War ended and the evil forces were conquered, but one didn't really learn anything from it, because then there's more other sources of evil to have or enemies to fight, and it goes on, and it just keeps. There's no end to that. Now it's the IS and these kind of perceptions are being built up as the enemy, and where the idealism of, say, the IS is built on ideals that once you get their form of government, their form of cultural adherence operating, then that will be save the world. But the world, in Buddhist terms, is like Ajahn would talk about the end of the world, and he'd point to his citta, to his heart. And I remember one time there was some young Western people visiting Watapo, and Ajahn Chah, I was translating for Lumpur Cha, and he asked them, "Did you come here to die?" And I had to translate that into English. And of course, it's so shocking. He's saying it with a big smile on his face. And they didn't come here other than, I don't think they understood what he was saying. And then he points to his citta and says, "The end of the world is here." And that's quite profound, because we think with the perceptions of end of the world are apocalyptic. To us the world is the universe, and or planet Earth, or the end of the end of civilization is seen in terms of great terror and fear and annihilation. But in terms of bhavana or meditation, you can actually witness the end condition. You're taking just like a feeling or a mood, whatever it might be, and by accepting it for what it is, you'll see its end. That's the world, end of the world that Lumpur Cha is pointing at. Did you come here to die? And the ego is a construction we make out of ignorance. So when the ego dies, when there's no ego, then that's the end of the self, the death of the self. But it's more like observing this arising and ceasing. It's not like the absolute end, total annihilation. It's not nihilistic, but it's the middle way where you learn from the microcosm rather than always looking out at the macrocosm and wondering who created it and when it will end. And so, in Vipassana or insight practices, you've got all these tools to use, like the essential teachings of the Buddha, to investigate your own experience, and not through the sense of it's your experience, but in the sense of seeing it for what it is. It is, impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. So these three characteristics are are not qualities. They're not like quantities or qualities of anything. You're not saying, they're not moral judgments or saying one thing is better than another or how it should be, but it's just three characteristics are common to all phenomena, whether it's macrocosmic, whether it's the sun or the universe or just your own thought process or your emotional habits arising, ceasing. Now all of us, and you reflect on the condition you're in as a human form. We're very limited in the forms we're in. We're not God, and we can't know everything about everything, and so we can't stand at the center of the universe and know everything about everything. But we can know this, because when realistically speaking, each one of us is the center of the universe. The universe has no limit, no boundary. So each one is experiencing, we look to the center as some outside ourselves, but actually in practical terms, each one of us is the center of the universe that we're experiencing, that we're living in, that we create through our own ignorance and desires. And so being in the center is to be mindful then, not in terms of the ego conditioning or cultural biases or religious perceptions, but in terms of the characteristics of conditioned phenomena, which is not, is not about, they're not value judgments, they're just common characteristics. So this way of reflecting on the way things are is the great gift of the Buddha's teaching. And so much of modern Buddhism is, quite, its basic foundation is based on dana, sila, or generosity and morality. So it has a social aspect to it that is very meaningful. It has the law of karma. To do good you receive good, to do bad you receive bad. And then people would question, they say, Ajahn Sumedho, I know somebody who's a criminal, has committed murders and traffics drugs and beats his wife and generally degenerate, and he does so many bad things, but he is incredibly wealthy. And so this law of karma is not affecting him. He should be paying for his crimes and his sins and his immoral behavior. And because we think of like being a successful businessman or wealthy or famous, and that is like good karma. Like a reward for something that you shouldn't. Those kind of people, those criminal elements, shouldn't be rewarded for their bad behavior. They should be punished. So that's the logic that we have. When we think about people should pay for their crimes and good people should be rewarded. This is a thinking process, and that's logical. But when we bring it down to microcosmic reality, to the here and now, when you look at, even in the Hollywood films, criminals, even though they have beautiful homes and yachts and all the pleasures that we imagine are the signs of success, they have to live in a world of fear. So, like from my own experience, like say lying. If I tell a lie, maybe nobody knows it, but I do, and you have this guilty feeling. You know, you said something, deceived somebody, and maybe nobody will ever find out. But the result, the karmic result of lying is this feeling of, you've said something that isn't true. And then that tends to resonate as a vipaka karma in your life. And so whether you're wealthy or poor or male or female, it's the same thing for all of us. And so much of modern society is being, there's all kinds of drug problems, alcohol problems, even among children and teenagers, because they're not, the law of karma is not a part of our cultural perception. It's about happiness and pleasure seeking, and even morality is hardly mentioned these days. It's about, passing the exams as number one, or getting in the best schools, or having a Mercedes-Benz, or whatever is held out for being a famous rock star or movie star as what success is about, rather than say doing good and refraining from doing bad. And like in Thailand now, they're having there's some efforts now. They do teach Dharma, they do teach basic Buddhism in the schools. And also there's an effort to really teach meditation even in Buddhist schools in Thailand, where children will be more informed in actual important teachings of the Buddha, the Bhavana level also. And that's important to prove to yourself that to do good you receive good. Like if you think a good thought, like may all beings be well, that gives you a more positive sense of happiness, immediate happiness, than may all beings be miserable. And you can prove it as simple as that. You can. It's not mystical or abstract or abstruse, but quite real in the sense that when you feel happy and you think in a positive way, you tend to create the mood of happiness. When you think in negative ways, then you feel unhappiness, and that's the law of karma. Just how we create the world we're living in depends whether it is a pleasant one or unpleasant world, or just on the social family level. So it's these are things you can prove to yourself. They're not. You're not expected to believe on what I say, but you can actually recognize the reality behind what I'm saying yourself. And in monastic life, for example, we have the samana sanya reflections, which create. We're reflecting on being a samana, an alms mendicant in a capitalist democratic society. We're dependent on the kindness, because we give up our rights to hold money and grow crops and things like that. So we're even on the basic necessity of food is dependent. Like what we're experiencing now is from this basic need, the need to feed the sangha, because we're quite helpless in the fact that we can't go to the supermarket and buy our own food, or go to a restaurant and pay for our meals, or grow our own food in the gardens around us. So this creates this sense of dependency on the kindness of others, brings a sense of gratitude, which is a very beautiful mental state, to be grateful. And so in Pali they call it Gatanyu Gataviti, this sense of gratitude through reflection. And it's reflecting on these simple things, that our life is dependent on the kindness of others, and not just repeat it, as a peremptory statement, but really reflect on it, that our life is dependent on the kindness, generosity of other people. And then you begin to feel this sense of gratitude arising. So the life of the samana, of the Buddhist monk, is one of dependency. It's voluntary dependency, and we can all disrobe and go off and make a fortune for ourselves if we want, or become farmers and grow our own food. But in this form, it's voluntary, so it's not like poverty and it's forced on you. It's mendicancy, depending on the goodness of others. This generates, like what Ajahn Kalyano's done here, is create a space, a place, a physical location where we can all assemble, where this offering of dana, of food, of requisites to the sangha is done. It can be perfunctory, it can be just ceremonial, but also when you reflect on it, on offering requisites because they're actually needed, then that brings, just observe the mental state that you're experiencing. That it brings joy to the lay community, and then it brings up in the monastic sangha gratitude. So these are beautiful states of mind. They're jhana factors. They're factors of enlightenment. They help increase the quality of one's experience of life within the very limited forms we find ourselves. So like dana, sila, bhavana, I always love that sequence. There's a tremendous wisdom in it. It starts with, some people, I know some people in England who are very moralistic. They see Buddhism as from a very rigid moral standard, and they were saying that we teach people that you can't be a Buddhist unless you keep the 5 precepts. And so they were starting with sila, and actually it begins with dana, and so with generosity. And the thing of dana is as selfless giving. It's not giving something. It's not quid pro quo. It's giving because that in itself is a right thing to do, and you feel it. You feel a sense of joy at offering. And then the sangha, the monastic sangha, feels gratitude for what is offered. So this is a wholesome moment. It's a situation that brings kusala Dhamma into our lives when we reflect on it. So it's not just ceremonial, like some people think it's just Thai Sinhalese ceremonies, and see it in terms of just how it appears to a Western mind that hasn't grown up in a Buddhist culture. But when you're very much at the heart of it, like being a Buddhist monk, being a bhikkhu, you're very much at the heart of this this experience, because the samana life is a risk. When I realized what I'd actually committed myself to, at first it was a bit of a shock, because I was interested in meditation, and to stay in Thailand, you could stay longer if you were an ordained samanera or a bhikkhu than if you were just a layperson. You had more, you had the physical support to do it. But over the years, through the samana sanya practices, reflections in the morning or evening pujas, they have an effect over time to where you do experience the contentment. Your life is based on contentment, on peacefulness, on non-violence, and on gratitude. And you can't make yourself into a contented person. You might idealize contentment and think, I should be content. But contentment comes through wisdom, through reflection, not through just trying to conform to some ideal of contentment. And to understand contentment, you have to see the suffering you create through discontentment, through the complaining mind, through never being content with anything. Modern society is about being discontented. Everything around you, the advertisements, the television, the internet, is about don't be content with what you have. The newest model is much better than last year's, and it's deliberately promoting discontentment. And notice that the structure of Sangha life is about being content with, like, alms food, and then we relinquish it every day, so we're not hoarding up food, and so we have to take a risk the next day whether somebody will offer food or not. And I know my experience in England, it could be just assuming people are going to come, that you expect people to come and offer dharma, and you don't reflect on these samana sanya reflections, you don't use them. And then your life as a bhikkhu can be very discontented with it, because you can imagine a better place to go, or better people to live with, or you get restless and bored with the place you're in, and we have to deal with a restless mind and a critical mind and a complaining mind. But this awareness is, we're aware when we feel discontented, and so when you're feeling discontented and complaining, really feel it, really observe it, take discontentment to where it actually ceases, because then if you just feel you shouldn't feel discontent, then you feel guilty. But you can't be content until you understand and have insight into the suffering of discontentment. And that's where, like, modern capitalism, free market economies, materialism of the societies we live in, they're definitely promoting discontentment, and that's the way it is. I'm not even complaining about that, just awakening to the realities of the social structure, the culture that we're living in affects me like this. And then we can, and so it's not to complain about capitalism or free market economies, but to get to know them, that this is how they affect, how they arouse this discontentment in me, or greed for wanting, or how I feel disappointed or critical of the system is like this. Be more confident and trusting in your awareness of what you're feeling as it really is, and to do that you accept it. You if it's good, then that's the positive, active way to relate to the world around us, to the society we're living in. If it's negative and angry and jealous and frightened, then we don't act or speak on those kind of perceptions, but we're aware of them. They take us to the same place, to the end of the world, which is peace. So rather than the end of the world as annihilation, it's what is peace? What is peacefulness? And it's not that it is distant, it's just not recognized because we're so caught up into creating the worlds that we're conditioned to believe in without reflection. So Buddhism isn't like a revolution. It's not trying to convert people, or trying to make people into Buddhists or complain about the society. But it's like when we first moved to Chithurst in Sussex, a woman came and said, "Why are you here? You want to convert us all to being Buddhists? We have our religion." She was complaining about this, what she saw as a religious sect, which tends to create this sense of we're here to convert you and convince you to believe what we believe in. And I said, no. I said that I came here on invitation, and it's available for those that are interested. We don't advertise. We're not out to convert people, but there are those that are interested, who it's a place to come to where people can relax and listen to Dhamma if they're interested, where they can give dana, where they can reflect on their lives, things like this. And I think she quite believed me. She seemed much more impressed and friendly after I said that. Sometimes, we look at, we often get referred to as Hare Krishna, and there's street corner evangelists that are out there passing out leaflets, saying why you should believe their doctrines. But actually, and according to the monastic vinaya, we're forbidden to do things like that. And so that's why when you ask for the 5 precepts, you have to ask 3 times. Even one time, you say, if you ask them for the 5 precepts, we can't give them to you. That's 3 times. And you can think that it's just ceremony, Theravada Buddhist ceremony, but it has a point to it. You're requesting them. It would be wrong for me to say, you should take the 5 precepts, and I'm going to give you the 5 precepts, and you'll go to hell if you don't keep them. It's actually against the Vinaya code that we live by. So it is a very mature attitude that the Buddhist practice develops. It's not just conditioning, it's not cultish, it's not about believing and judging other religions, but it's awakening, it's rising from awaken to reality rather than trying to conform to conventions or beliefs or doctrines. So we have our conventions and beliefs, but they're based on Dhamma rather than on fear. So much of religion is based on, sending you to hell if you don't believe, or punishing you for misbehaving, not keeping the 5 precepts and things like this. Reward and punishment is what the society generally believes in, So, but the Buddhist teaching isn't about reward and punishment; it's about awakening to reality. So tomorrow I'll be leaving for Sydney and express my gratitude to everyone. Ajahn Kogara and the Sangha here have treated me with great kindness, and I've enjoyed very much my time here at BuddhaBodhivana.